I thought I was doing the right thing. I paid for everything, the scans, the hospital, even the crib. She told me she was abandoned, alone, scared. But when I handed the nurse the cash for her baby's delivery, the real father walked out of the next room, holding a stuffed teddy bear. I still remember his face and hers. Not a trace of guilt, just silence. I'm pacing this sterile hospital corridor like a caged animal, my worn boots squeaking against the polished floor with every step. The antiseptic smell burns my nostrils, mixing with the fear and excitement churning in my gut. The nurse keeps telling me to sit down in one of those uncomfortable plastic chairs, but I can't. My body won't let me. Jessalyn's been in labor for 6 hours now, and every scream from behind that door makes my chest tighten like someone's wrapping barbed wire around my ribs. I've got an envelope in my jacket pocket, 60,000 pesos, all cash crisp bills I counted 3 times this morning. It's for the private room upgrade, the fancy OBGYN she wanted, the premium care package that promises everything will be perfect. I want everything perfect for our baby, Harlan, she'd whispered 3 weeks ago, her dark eyes filling with tears that caught the light from our small apartment window. You're such a blessing to me. I don't know what I would have done without you. God sent you to save me. That's what she called me. Her blessing. A 66-year-old retired hardware store owner from Boise, Idaho, becoming someone's miracle. Someone's salvation. After Margaret died, after the cancer took her piece by piece over 18 brutal months, I thought I was done feeling needed by anyone, done mattering to another human being. My kids called every few months, quick conversations filled with weather updates and empty promises to visit that we all knew would never happen. They had their own lives, their own problems, their own families to worry about. I was just a box to check on their duty list. Then I found Jessalyn on that dating app, Silver Connections, they called it, designed for mature adults seeking companionship in their golden years. Her profile picture showed this stunning Filipina woman with a smile that could light up a power outage and eyes that seemed to look right through the camera into your soul. Looking for someone genuine, her bio read. Age is just a number when hearts connect across the distance, seeking a real man who knows how to love and protect a woman. Mr. Bishop? A young nurse approaches, her scrubs pristine white, her voice gentle but urgent. She's asking for you. The baby's coming now. I follow her through the double doors, my hands shaking like autumn leaves. How did I get here? 8 months ago, I was eating frozen dinners in front of the TV, wondering if anyone would notice if I just stopped showing up to anything. Now, I'm about to become a father figure to a child conceived in passion and love. At least, that's what I believed then. That's what I needed to believe. The delivery room smells like antiseptic and hope, and something else I can't identify. Maybe it's just the scent of life beginning. Jessalyn looks so small against the hospital bed, her black hair matted with sweat, her face pale but still beautiful, in that way that made me fall in love with her photograph before I ever heard her voice. She grips my hand when she sees me, her fingers surprisingly strong for someone so delicate. Harlan, you came. I was afraid you might change your mind, might decide this is too much for a man your age. Of course I came, sweetheart. I wouldn't be anywhere else in the world. This is our moment. She smiles through her exhaustion, and for a second she looks like the girl in that first photograph again. Young, hopeful, trusting. I love you so much, Harlan. This baby is going to be so lucky to have you as a daddy. You're going to be the best daddy in the whole world. My throat closes up tight. Daddy. At 66, when I thought my parenting days were ancient history, when my own grown children barely remembered my birthday or called on Christmas morning, but Jessalyn made me feel vital again, necessary, like I had something important left to contribute to the world. She made me believe that love could bloom even in the winter of a man's life, that second chances weren't just fairy tales people told themselves. I love you too, I whisper back, kissing her damp forehead. Both of you, all 3 of us. Another contraction hits, and she squeezes my hand so hard I think she might break the bones. But I don't pull away. This is what partners do. They hold on through the pain. They endure together. They create life through suffering and joy, all mixed up into something beautiful and terrifying. He's coming, the doctor announces from between her legs, his voice professional but excited. I can see the head, dark hair, just like Mama. The next 10 minutes blur together like scenes from a movie played at double speed, pushing, breathing, encouraging words that feel like prayers to a God I haven't spoken to since Margaret's funeral. The monitors beep steadily, the medical team moves with practiced efficiency, and Jessalyn transforms before my eyes from the young woman I fell in love with into something primal and powerful and absolutely magnificent. Then suddenly a cry pierces the air. A baby's cry. Strong and healthy and real and absolutely perfect. The most beautiful sound I've ever heard in my 66 years on this earth. It's a boy, the doctor announces, holding up this tiny, wrinkled miracle, covered in blood and vernix, and the mystery of new life. Congratulations, Dad. You have a healthy son. Dad. The word hits me like lightning. I'm crying now, tears streaming down my weathered face without shame or embarrassment. A son. At my age, when most men are content being grandfathers, I have a son. This is my boy, my blood, my legacy continuing into a future I'll probably never see. The nurse takes him to clean him up while I hold Jessalyn's hand and watch this tiny person who came from our love, our connection, our commitment to building something beautiful together. His cries fill the room, strong and demanding, like he's announcing his arrival to the entire world. He's perfect, Jessalyn whispers, her voice hoarse from hours of labor. Just like his daddy. Look at him, Harlan. Really look at him. I reach into my jacket and pull out the envelope, thick with cash that represents months of careful saving and planning. This is my moment, the moment I prove I'm not just some lonely old man looking for companionship overseas. I'm a provider, a protector, a partner worthy of the trust this young woman has placed in me. Here, I tell the nurse, handing her the money with hands that have finally stopped shaking. For the private room, the specialist, everything we discussed. I want to make sure all the bills are covered. She counts it quickly, efficiently, like she's handled these transactions 1,000 times before. All taken care of, sir. Your family will have everything they need. Family. The word settles over me like a warm blanket on a cold Idaho morning. I have a family again. After 2 years of echoing silence in that empty house, after 24 months of wondering if my life's purpose had died with Margaret, I have a reason to wake up in the morning, a reason to plan for tomorrow. Jessalyn is holding the baby now, this tiny bundle wrapped in a soft hospital blanket. He's stopped crying and is looking around with dark, unfocused eyes that seem to take in everything and nothing all at once. Look at him, Harlan. He has your nose, your strong chin. He's going to be handsome like his daddy. I lean in close, studying the baby's features with the intensity of a scientist examining a precious specimen. He's beautiful, absolutely perfect, everything I never knew I wanted at this stage of my life. His little fingers curl and uncurl like he's grasping for something just out of reach. What should we name him? I ask, my voice still thick with emotion. We talked about so many names, but now that he's here, you choose, she says softly, looking up at me with those dark eyes that first captured my heart through a computer screen 8,000 miles away. You're his father now. You've earned the right to name him. Father. The weight of that word settles over me like the responsibility it represents. This child will carry my name, grow up calling me Dad, look to me for guidance and protection and love for the rest of my natural life and beyond. At 66, when most men my age are thinking about retirement communities and medical insurance, I'm starting completely over with sleepless nights and diaper changes and PTA meetings. Matthew, I say without hesitation, the name emerging from somewhere deep in my chest. After my brother who died in Vietnam. Matthew Bishop. Jessalyn nods, cradling little Matthew against her chest. Matthew Bishop, it's perfect. He's perfect. We're perfect. The room feels full of possibility, of love, of the kind of hope I thought I'd lost forever. I'm so focused on this moment, this perfect moment that feels like the beginning of everything I was meant to have, that I don't notice the shadows moving in the corridor outside. I don't see the man pacing his own path just a few doors down, clutching a stuffed teddy bear and checking his phone every 30 seconds like he's waiting for the most important news of his life. I don't see any of it because I'm too busy falling in love with my new life, too busy believing in the fairy tale I've constructed around this young woman and the child I think is mine. I'm too busy being grateful for what I think is a second chance at happiness to realize that everything I believe about this moment, about this relationship, about this baby, is built on a foundation of lies so elaborate and convincing that even now, even knowing what I know, part of me still wants to believe it was real. But it wasn't real. None of it was real. And in about 20 minutes, When I walk out to the corridor to call my daughter with the good news, when I see another man emerge from the room next door holding that teddy bear like it's the most precious thing in the world, when I watch him walk into Jesselyn's room and see her face light up with genuine joy, not the practiced smile she's been giving me for 8 months, but real, unguarded, absolutely radiant joy, I'll understand that I've been living in a fantasy. I'll understand that I was never the father. I was just the bank account. 2 years after Margaret's funeral, I'd become a ghost haunting my own life. I wandered through that empty house in Boise like I was some lost spirit who couldn't figure out how to move on to whatever comes next. Every room held memories that cut like broken glass, her coffee cup still in the sink because I couldn't bring myself to wash it, her reading glasses on the nightstand where she'd left them the morning she went into the hospital for the last time, her favorite throw pillow that still smelled faintly of her perfume if I buried my face in it and breathed deep enough. The silence was the worst part. Not just quiet silence, the kind of absolute absence of sound that makes you question whether you're actually alive or just going through the motions of living. No more morning conversations over coffee about what the day might bring. No more evening debriefs about customers at the hardware store or neighbors we'd seen at the grocery store. No more someone calling my name from another room, needing me for something, anything. "Dad, you need to get out more," my daughter Sarah kept saying during our increasingly awkward monthly phone calls. "Maybe join a book club, take up golf, start volunteering somewhere. You can't just sit in that house forever." Easy for her to say. She had her own life in Seattle, her own husband, her own teenagers who consumed every moment of her attention. I was just another item on her worry list, somewhere between her daughter's college applications and her son's soccer schedule, an obligation to manage rather than a person to connect with. "I'm fine," I'd tell her, the lie coming easier each time, just taking things slow, figuring out what comes next. But there was no next. There was just the endless present of empty rooms and frozen dinners and television shows I watched without really seeing. The hardware store had been sold 6 months after Margaret died, 43 years of building something meaningful, and I signed it away on a Tuesday afternoon like it was just another piece of paperwork. Maybe it was. Without Margaret to share the stories, without her waiting at home to hear about old Mr. Peterson's latest plumbing disaster or young Jenny's first apartment renovation, the store felt hollow too. That's when loneliness drove me to do something I never thought I'd do in a million years. I downloaded Silver Connections, a dating app designed for mature adults seeking companionship. I'm not proud of it, a grown man in his 60s swiping through photographs like some desperate teenager looking for validation. But the isolation was eating me alive from the inside out, and I needed something, anything, to remind me I was still a human being capable of connection. Jesselyn's message arrived on a Thursday morning while I was eating stale cereal and watching the local news report on road construction that would never affect me because I rarely left the house anymore. "Hello, handsome," it read, and just seeing those 2 words on my phone screen made something flutter in my chest that I'd thought was dead forever. "Your profile caught my eye because you seem like a genuine man with a good heart. I'd love to get to know you better if you're interested in talking to someone who values honesty and real connection." Attached was a photograph of her sitting in what looked like a small, modest apartment, wearing a simple blue dress that brought out her dark eyes and made her skin look like warm honey in the soft light. She was 28 to my 64, beautiful in a way that made me wonder what someone like her could possibly want with a broken-down old man like me. But God help me, something about her smile, something about the way she looked directly into the camera like she was looking right at me, made me want to find out. I stared at that message for an hour before I finally worked up the courage to write back. "Thank you for reaching out," I typed, deleting and retyping the words a dozen times. "I'd like to get to know you too, if you don't mind talking to someone who's still learning how to live again." Her response came within minutes. "We're all learning how to live, handsome. Some of us are just more honest about it than others. Would you like to video chat tonight? I'd love to see your face when you tell me about yourself." Our first video call lasted 4 hours. 4 hours. I hadn't talked to another human being for 4 consecutive hours since Margaret got sick. Jesselyn worked part-time at a call center in Quezon City, she told me, taking customer service calls for an American insurance company during the overnight shift to match American business hours. "The hours are terrible," she laughed, and her laugh was like music in my empty house. "I'm awake all night talking to people who are usually angry about their claims. Then I try to sleep during the day while my roommates are watching TV and cooking and living their lives." but it pays better than anything else I can find with my English skills. She lived in a shared apartment near a jeepney depot with 2 other young women, all of them trying to make ends meet in a city that demanded more than they could afford to give. It's noisy and crowded, and I have no privacy, she said, gesturing around the small space behind her. But we take care of each other. When one of us is struggling, the others help. It's not perfect, but it's family. There was something about her energy, her openness, her genuine warmth that pulled me out of the fog I'd been living in for 2 years. She asked about my life, my work, my dreams for the future, dreams I'd stopped having until she started asking about them. When I told her about Margaret, about the cancer, about the 18 months of watching someone I loved disappear piece by piece, she didn't offer empty condolences or try to change the subject like most people did. She must have been an amazing woman to earn such complete love from you, Jessalyn said softly, her eyes sincere on the screen. I hope someday someone will speak about me the way you speak about her. That kind of love is rare, Harlan. You should be proud that you were capable of it. Nobody had ever put it that way before. Nobody had ever suggested that my grief was evidence of something beautiful rather than something to get over and move past. In that moment, something cracked open in my chest that had been sealed shut since the funeral. We talked every day for 2 months. She'd call me during her lunch breaks at the call center, and I'd answer before the phone finished its first ring, grateful for her voice cutting through the silence. She told me about her family, a father who drank too much and hit too hard, siblings scattered across the Philippines trying to survive in an economy that offered few opportunities for people without connections or education. You're the first person in so long who makes me feel safe, she whispered during one late-night call, her voice small and vulnerable in the darkness of her shared room. Like maybe there's hope for happiness after all. Like maybe I deserve something good in my life. I started sending her money, small amounts at first, $50 to help with groceries when her paycheck was late, $100 for her share of the electric bill when the heat made the air conditioning necessary for survival. She protested every time, her pride clearly stinging from having to accept help. You don't have to do this, Harlan. I'm not talking to you because I want your money. I'm talking to you because you make me feel like I matter. But I could hear the relief in her voice when I insisted, could see the stress leave her shoulders during our video calls when she didn't have to worry about how she'd pay for basic necessities. I wanted to take care of someone again. I needed to feel useful, needed to matter in someone's daily survival, needed to be the answer to someone's problems instead of just a problem for other people to worry about. When I mentioned that I was thinking about visiting the Philippines, her whole face lit up like Christmas morning. Really? You'd come all the way here just to see me? You'd travel halfway around the world for someone you've only talked to through a screen? The way she said it, like she couldn't quite believe someone would consider her worth such an effort, broke something open in my chest. Of course I would. I think I'm falling in love with you, Jessalyn. I think you've saved my life without even realizing it. I love you too, Harlan. I never expected to feel this way about someone, especially someone so far away, someone I've never touched or held. But you've saved me too, in ways you don't even understand. You've given me hope that good men still exist in the world. The flight to Manila was the longest 24 hours of my life, not because of the distance or the connections or the cramped airplane seats, but because of the anticipation building in my chest like pressure in a boiler. I was about to meet the woman who'd pulled me back from the edge of giving up entirely, who'd made me remember what it felt like to have something to look forward to. At the airport, she ran into my arms like we'd been separated for years instead of months, like I was a soldier returning from war instead of a lonely widower looking for a reason to keep breathing. She was even more beautiful in person, petite and graceful with skin like warm honey and eyes that sparkled with mischief and intelligence. Her apartment was exactly as she'd described it, small, cramped, filled with the sounds of traffic and neighbors and life happening all around us. But lying in that narrow bed with her curled against my chest, listening to her breathe in the darkness while the city hummed outside our window, I felt more at home than I had since Margaret died. I never want to leave, I whispered into her hair, meaning every word. This feels more real than anything I've felt in years. Then don't leave, she whispered back, her voice sleepy and content. Stay with me, Harlan. Let me love you the way you deserve to be loved. Let me show you that your life isn't over, it's just beginning again. I extended my tourist visa. Once, then twice, then a third time, each extension requiring trips to government offices and paperwork and fees that I paid gladly, because the alternative was going back to that empty house in Boise. I rented us a small place closer to her work, Nothing fancy but clean and quiet and ours. She quit the night shift at the call center and found day work at a different company so we could spend evenings together like a real couple. We'd walk through the markets holding hands, me the only foreigner for miles but feeling welcomed by her presence beside me. We'd eat at tiny restaurants where the menus were all in Tagalog, and I'd trust her to order for both of us. We'd make love in the afternoons when the heat was too much for anything else, moving slowly and gently like we had all the time in the world. She never asked for much, but I gave anyway because giving felt good, because being needed felt like being alive again. A new phone because hers kept dropping calls with important customers. Money for English classes because she wanted to improve her pronunciation and maybe qualify for better jobs. Small gifts that made her smile, a necklace from the jewelry district that caught the light and made her eyes shine, a purse she'd admired in a shop window but would never buy for herself. "You spoil me," she'd laugh. But she never said no, never protested that she didn't deserve beautiful things, never made me feel like I was trying to buy her affection. Looking back now, I realize I was buying more than gifts. I was buying the feeling of being needed again, being wanted, being the center of someone's universe instead of an afterthought in the margins of other people's busy lives. After 2 years of feeling invisible, Jessalyn made me feel like the most important man in the world. I should have wondered why someone so young and beautiful would choose someone like me. I should have asked harder questions about her family, her friends, her life before we met. But when you're drowning in loneliness and someone throws you a rope, you don't examine the rope too closely. You just hold on and hope it's strong enough to save you. I thought it was. I thought she was. I thought I finally understood what it meant to get a second chance at happiness, to find love in the most unexpected place at the most unexpected time. I thought I was living a fairy tale. I thought I was the hero of my own love story. I had no idea I was just a supporting character in someone else's scam. The first time I saw another man's name on her phone, we were having breakfast at a small cafe near our apartment, one of those places that served coffee in glasses and fried rice that made my American stomach rumble with appreciation. She'd left her phone face up on the scratched wooden table while she went to the restroom, and a text message popped up on the screen like a bomb exploding in slow motion. "Jay, can't wait to see you later. Miss you." Just 8 words, but they hit me like a punch to the solar plexus. I stared at that message until the screen went dark, my coffee growing cold in my hands, my appetite disappearing like smoke. Who was Jay? In 5 months of daily conversations, 5 months of sharing every detail of our lives, she'd never mentioned anyone named Jay. When she came back from the restroom, sliding into her chair with that easy grace that had captured my attention from the beginning, I tried to keep my voice casual, conversational, like I was asking about the weather. "Someone named Jay texted you." She glanced at her phone, and for just a second, maybe half a second, something flickered across her face. Surprise? Panic? Then it was gone, replaced by that warm smile I'd grown to love. "Oh, that's my cousin," she said, picking up her fork like nothing had happened. "He works in Makati. Sometimes we have lunch when you're taking your afternoon nap." Her explanation was smooth, delivered without hesitation, but something about it felt rehearsed. Like she'd been preparing for this moment, this question, this conversation. "I'd love to meet him sometime," I said, watching her reaction carefully. "Maybe the 3 of us could have dinner, or he could come by the apartment." She stirred her coffee more than necessary, not meeting my eyes. "He's very shy around foreigners. Feels embarrassed about his English, you know. Filipino men can be sensitive about that kind of thing. But maybe someday." Someday never came. Jay remained this invisible cousin who existed only in text messages and lunch appointments that happened when I wasn't around. Every time I mentioned him, Jessalyn had a reason why a meeting wouldn't work out. He was traveling for work. He was helping his sick mother. He was too busy with his girlfriend's family obligations. I told myself I was being paranoid, that grief and loneliness had made me suspicious of shadows where none existed. Jessalyn loved me. She told me so every day. She showed me so every night. She'd moved in with me, changed her work schedule to match mine, integrated our lives in ways that spoke of commitment and genuine affection. What reason did I have to doubt her? But the red flags kept appearing, wrapped in pink ribbons of reasonable explanations that made me feel petty for even noticing them. She never let me meet her family, despite living in the same metropolitan area as 2 of her siblings and having cousins scattered throughout Quezon City. When I suggested we visit her parents in the province where she'd grown up, she always had reasons why it wouldn't work. My father is very traditional, she'd explain when I brought up meeting her family. He doesn't approve of me being with a foreigner, especially an older man. He thinks I'm being taken advantage of, that you'll use me and then abandon me. It would only cause drama if he met you. When I offered to help with her family's financial struggles, she'd mentioned her mother needing expensive medicine, her youngest brother needing tuition money for college. She always declined with what seemed like genuine pride. I don't want to mix family problems with our relationship, she'd say firmly. You've already done so much for me, Harlan. I can't keep taking your money for every little thing. But her family remained as invisible as her cousin Jay. In 7 months of living together, not one person from her previous life materialized. No girlfriend stopping by to chat and meet the foreign boyfriend. No coworkers inviting us out for drinks after their shifts. No neighbors who'd known her before I arrived. Don't you miss your friends? I asked one evening as we watched a Filipino movie on her laptop, my arm around her shoulders, her head resting against my chest. Sometimes, she said, snuggling closer, but I have you now. You're all I need, Harlan. You're my best friend, my lover, my everything. The words should have made me feel special, chosen, loved. Instead, they left me unsettled. Everyone needs more than one person. Everyone has a history, connections, roots that run deeper than a relationship that started 8 months ago. Jessalyn seemed to exist in a bubble that contained only me, like she'd sprung fully formed into existence the day I stepped off that plane from Boise. She kept her phone on silent constantly, claiming the call center job had trained her to hate notification sounds. All day long, beep, 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 she'd say, making an exaggerated, annoyed face. I need peace when I'm home with you. But I started noticing how often she checked it, how her eyes would dart to the screen every few minutes like she was expecting something important. Once, I caught her texting in the bathroom with the door cracked open, her fingers flying across the screen with the speed of someone who had a lot to say and limited time to say it. Work emergency? I asked when she emerged, slipping the phone into her pocket. Just my sister, she replied smoothly. Her baby was running a fever, and she was worried about taking him to the hospital. You know how expensive medical care is here. But I'd seen her sister's name in her contacts list when she'd shown me family photos. Her sister's name was Maria. The message I'd glimpsed over her shoulder had been addressed to someone whose name started with J. The money bothered me too, though I couldn't put my finger on exactly why. She never asked for large amounts, never demanded anything outright, never made me feel like I was being used. But there was always something: the landlord raising rent unexpectedly, her medical insurance premium coming due, a friend's emergency that required a quick loan to prevent eviction. The requests were always reasonable, always temporary, always accompanied by genuine gratitude and promises to pay me back when her next paycheck arrived, or when she got the raise she'd been promised, or when her family situation stabilized. I hate asking you for help, she'd say, tears in her eyes, her voice thick with what seemed like genuine shame. I'm not used to depending on anyone, but I don't know what else to do. The paybacks never came, but I stopped expecting them. What was a few $100s here and there compared to having someone who made me feel alive again? I had more money than I knew what to do with anyway: the hardware store sale, Margaret's life insurance payout, our combined retirement savings sitting in accounts that earned minimal interest while I figured out what to do with the rest of my life. If helping Jessalyn gave my money purpose, if being her provider made me feel necessary and valued, wasn't that worth more than watching numbers grow in bank statements I rarely looked at? But late at night, when she was sleeping beside me and the room was dark except for the glow from the streetlights filtering through our thin curtains, doubt would creep in like smoke under a door. Why hadn't she introduced me to anyone from her real life? Why did she seem to have no past before me, no connections that predated our relationship? Why did conversations about her childhood always veer toward general topics: the weather in her home province, the taste of fresh mangoes, the sound of roosters at dawn, but never specific memories, names, stories that stuck with you? I'd watch her sleeping face in the dim light and search for answers I didn't really want to find. She looked so peaceful, so innocent, so genuinely happy. Her face relaxed in sleep. She looked even younger than her 28 years, like a child who'd finally found safety after a long, difficult journey. Maybe I was overthinking everything. Maybe this was just how relationships worked in her culture. Maybe I was imposing my American expectations on a situation I didn't fully understand. Maybe the isolation was normal, the financial struggles were real, the family complications were exactly what they seemed. You worry too much. She'd tell me when I'd ask casual questions about her day, about her friends, about the life she'd lived before we met. I'm here with you now, aren't I? Doesn't that prove how I feel? Actions speak louder than words, Harlan. And she was right, in a way. She was there, in my arms, in my bed, in my daily life. She laughed at my jokes, listened to my stories about the hardware store and my customers and my life back in Idaho. She held my hand when we walked through the markets, translated conversations with vendors, made me feel welcome in a country where I stood out like a lighthouse. If this was an act, it was the most convincing performance I'd ever witnessed. If she was using me, she was doing it with such skill, such attention to detail, such apparent genuine affection that I almost didn't care. I chose to believe her. I chose hope over suspicion, trust over doubt, love over logic. When you've been as lonely as I was, when someone offers you companionship and affection and the chance to feel necessary again, you don't examine the gift too closely. You just accept it and hope your luck holds. Looking back now, I realize I wasn't choosing trust at all. I was choosing willful blindness. There's a difference between having faith in someone and refusing to see what's right in front of your face. I was so desperate to believe in our love story, so hungry for connection and purpose, that I ignored every warning sign, dismissed every doubt, rationalized every inconsistency. I wanted to be her blessing so badly that I forgot to ask if she was really mine or if I was just convenient. I wanted to believe in fairy tales so much that I ignored the simple truth that real love doesn't require this much effort to believe in. But the truth was coming, whether I was ready for it or not, and it was going to arrive in a hospital corridor, in the form of a man holding a teddy bear, walking toward a room that contained my money and her baby and the end of everything I thought I knew about my life. The rain was hammering our tin roof like an army of angry drummers when Jessalyn came home from what she called a routine checkup at the community health clinic. I was sitting on our small couch reading a paperback thriller I'd picked up at a secondhand bookstore, enjoying the sound of the storm and the coolness it brought to our usually stuffy apartment. She stood in the doorway longer than usual, water dripping from her black hair onto our linoleum floor, her face unreadable. "How did it go?" I asked, looking up from my book. She'd been having stomach problems for a few weeks, nausea that hit her like a freight train in the mornings, fatigue that left her sleeping until noon, sensitivity to foods she'd always loved. I'd been trying to convince her to see a real doctor instead of relying on the free clinic, but money was tight that month, or so she said. She sat down heavily in the plastic chair across from me, still wearing her rain-soaked jacket, water pooling around her feet. For a long moment she just stared at her hands folded in her lap, her shoulders tense, her breathing shallow. I could hear my own heartbeat over the sound of the rain drumming against our windows. "Jessalyn, what's wrong? You're scaring me. I'm pregnant." The words came out barely above a whisper, but they might as well have been a gunshot in the small room. My book slipped from my hands and hit the floor with a soft thud that seemed to echo forever. "You're what?" But I'd heard her clearly. My brain just couldn't process the information fast enough. Pregnant. At 28, with a 65-year-old man whose own biological children were older than she was. Pregnant with my child. "I'm pregnant," she repeated, louder this time but still not meeting my eyes. Her voice shook like she was delivering news of a terminal diagnosis instead of the miracle of new life. "About 6 weeks, the nurse thinks. Maybe 7. I've been throwing up every morning, and my period is late, and I just kept hoping it was stress or bad food or anything else." Now she looked at me, and I saw tears streaming down her face, mixing with the rainwater still dripping from her hair. I cried for 2 days before I got the courage to get tested. I didn't know how to tell you. I stood up so fast I knocked over my coffee cup, sending lukewarm liquid spreading across our small table like a brown lake. A baby. At my age. With this woman I'd known for less than a year. The practical part of my brain was screaming warnings about age gaps and cultural differences and financial responsibilities and the sheer insanity of starting over as a father when I should be thinking about retirement homes and medical directives. But the lonely part of my brain, the part that had been aching for purpose since Margaret died, was singing. A baby. A chance to be needed in the most fundamental way possible. A chance to create something beautiful with this woman who'd pulled me back from the brink of giving up on happiness entirely. Harlan? Her voice was small, scared, like a child confessing to breaking something precious. Please say something. You can leave me if you want to. I won't blame you. I know this isn't what you signed up for when you came here. I know you didn't come to the Philippines to become a father again. Leave her? Leave them? The thought was absurd, impossible, like suggesting I should stop breathing or forget my own name. I crossed the room in 3 quick steps and pulled her into my arms, rain-soaked jacket and all. She felt so fragile against my chest, this young woman carrying my child, carrying our future, carrying the answer to questions I didn't even know I'd been asking. Leave you? Jessalyn, I'm not going anywhere. We're going to figure this out together. All 3 of us. She sobbed against my shirt, her whole body shaking like she was releasing months of fear and uncertainty and hope she'd been afraid to feel. I was so scared you'd think I trapped you or tricked you or did this on purpose. I know I'm not what you expected. I know this complicates everything we've built together. I held her tighter, breathing in the scent of her shampoo mixed with rainwater and something else. Maybe it was just the smell of new life beginning, of possibilities I'd never imagined opening up before me like doors I didn't know existed. Hey, look at me. I tilted her chin up until our eyes met, until I could see my own reflection in her dark pupils. This doesn't complicate anything. This makes everything clear. I love you, and now I'm going to love our baby too. Our baby? She repeated, like she was testing how the words felt in her mouth, like she was trying to believe this was really happening. You really want this? You really want to start over at your age? Did I want this? 6 months ago, I was eating frozen dinners alone and wondering if anyone would notice if I disappeared from the world entirely. Now, I was about to become a father again, with a woman who made me feel alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible, in a country that had become more home to me than the house I'd lived in for 40 years. I want this, I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. I want you, I want the baby, I want all of it. I want to build a family with you. The next few hours blur together in my memory, like scenes from a movie played at the wrong speed, holding her while she cried, relief and fear and joy all mixed together, making plans over instant coffee and crackers, talking about cribs and names, and how we'd need to find a bigger place before the baby arrived. She wanted to move closer to a better hospital, somewhere with good prenatal care and modern equipment. I want everything to be perfect, she said, her hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. This baby deserves the best of everything. The best doctors, the best hospital, the best start in life we can give him. Him? I asked, covering her hand with mine. You think it's a boy? I don't know why, but yes. I feel like it's a boy. A strong boy who's going to look just like his daddy. I called our landlord that night and gave notice on our lease. We spent the following weekend looking at apartments in Makati, closer to the private hospitals and international clinics where expats went when they needed serious medical care. The rent was 3 times what we'd been paying, but I didn't care. I had money saved, and now I had a reason to spend it that felt important, meaningful, like an investment in something that would outlast me. When Jessalyn found a small 2-bedroom place near a park with playground equipment, her face lit up like Christmas morning. The baby could play there when he's older, she said, standing at the window overlooking the swings and slides where children were laughing and chasing each other in the afternoon Sunday. Look at you, already planning his childhood, I said, wrapping my arms around her from behind. You're going to be an amazing mother, and you're going to be an amazing father, again. At 65, most men are content being grandfathers, but you're brave enough to start completely over. We spent hours that night lying in bed, trading names back and forth like we were negotiating a peace treaty. Traditional Filipino names, American names, combinations that honored both cultures. Michelangelo, James Patrick, David Jose. Each name felt like we were writing the first page of our child's story, deciding who he would be before he even had a heartbeat we could hear. It felt surreal and wonderful and terrifying all at once. At 65, I was planning a future I'd never imagined possible, preparing for sleepless nights and diaper changes and first steps and first words and all the milestones I'd experienced with my other children 30 years ago. I started transferring money to her account for prenatal appointments, special vitamins, organic food that would help our baby grow strong and healthy. She protested initially. You're already paying for everything else, Harlan. The apartment, the utilities, my food. I can't keep taking your money for every little thing. But I insisted. This is my responsibility now, I told her, meaning every word. Our responsibility. I want you to have the best care available. I want our baby to have every advantage we can give him. She never showed me the receipts from the doctor visits, but I didn't ask to see them. I trusted her to make good decisions about her health and our baby's health. When she mentioned needing new clothes for her changing body, I gave her cash for shopping trips that seemed to make her genuinely happy. When she said the doctor recommended special supplements only available at certain pharmacies, I covered the cost without question. Looking back now, I realize how easy it was for her to manipulate my protective instincts, my desire to provide and care for the people I loved. Every request seemed reasonable, every expense necessary for the health and safety of our child. I wasn't just sending money to a girlfriend anymore, I was investing in our future family, ensuring that my son would have everything he needed to thrive. But at the time, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Of course, I wanted to take care of her. Of course, I wanted to ensure our baby had every advantage. Of course, I trusted the woman I loved to handle the practical details while I focused on preparing emotionally for fatherhood. The irony is crushing now. I thought I was being a responsible partner, a good provider, a man worthy of the trust she'd placed in me. I thought our love story was just beginning, that the baby was proof of how real and deep our connection had become. I thought I was finally living the life I was meant to have. I thought pregnancy would bring us closer together, would deepen our bond, would prove that what we had was real and lasting and worth the risks we'd both taken. Instead, it was the beginning of the end. The moment everything I believed about our relationship started unraveling, even though I was too blind to see it happening. Because she wasn't just carrying my baby, she was carrying a secret that would destroy everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and the woman I'd planned to spend the rest of my life with. 7 months later, I'm back in that sterile hospital corridor, but the hope that carried me through Jesselyn's pregnancy has been replaced by something darker, heavier, like a weight pressing down on my chest that makes it hard to breathe. The contractions started at 3 a.m, and we've been at St. Luke's Medical Center since dawn broke gray and humid over Manila. I paid for everything, just like I promised I would. The private room with the extra bed for family members. The specialist obstetrician who spoke perfect English and had degrees from American universities. The premium care package that guaranteed individual attention and the latest medical equipment. 60,000 pesos in cash, counting it out in front of the billing clerk like I was buying groceries instead of bringing a human life into the world. The baby's coming early 2 weeks before the due date we'd calculated and recalculated a dozen times, but the doctor assured us that's normal for first pregnancies. First pregnancy. The phrase stuck in my mind like a splinter, sharp and uncomfortable. I'd asked Jesselyn once, months ago, if she'd ever been pregnant before, and she'd looked at me with such hurt in her eyes that I'd immediately felt guilty for asking. How can you even think that? You know you're my first real love, my first everything that matters. Now, I'm wondering if I know anything at all. She's been different these past few weeks. More distant, taking phone calls in the bathroom, going out for errands that take hours longer than they should. When I asked about baby names again, she changed the subject. When I suggested calling my daughter Sarah to tell her about the pregnancy, Jesselyn got upset. Let's wait until after the birth, she said, her voice tight with what looked like anxiety. I don't want to jinx anything. Too many things can go wrong. The door to the delivery room opens, and a nurse in pristine scrubs waves me in. She's ready to push now. The baby's coming. I follow her through the double doors, my heart hammering against my ribs like it's trying to escape my chest. This is it. This is the moment I become a father again. The moment our family becomes real, instead of just hope and planning and dreams whispered in the darkness. Jesselyn looks exhausted, her hair soaked with sweat, but she manages a smile when she sees me. There's something in her eyes I can't identify. Relief? Fear? Something else that flickers and disappears before I can name it. You came, she whispers, reaching for my hand. I wasn't sure you'd want to be here for the actual birth. Some men can't handle it. What a strange thing to say. Where else would I be? This is my child being born, my son taking his first breath, my family beginning. Of course I'm here, sweetheart. I wouldn't miss this for anything. The next 20 minutes are a blur of medical activity, encouragement, and increasingly urgent instructions from the team of doctors and nurses surrounding the bed. Jesselyn squeezes my hand so hard I think she might break the bones, but I don't pull away. This is what partners do. They endure together. They create life through pain and joy, all mixed up into something beautiful and terrifying. I can see the head, the doctor announces. Dark hair, just like Mama predicted. Jesselyn bears down with everything she has, her face red with effort, and suddenly there's a cry. A baby's cry. Strong and healthy and absolutely perfect. The most beautiful sound I've ever heard in my 66 years on this earth. It's a boy, the doctor says, holding up this tiny, wrinkled miracle covered in the evidence of his journey into the world. Congratulations, Dad. You have a healthy son. Dad. The word hits me like lightning, like revelation, like everything I've been waiting for my entire life without knowing it. I'm crying now, tears streaming down my face without shame or embarrassment. A son. This squirming, crying bundle of new life is my boy, my blood, my legacy continuing into a future I might not live to see but will always be part of. When they place him on Jesselyn's chest, I lean in close, studying his features with the intensity of someone trying to memorize something precious before it disappears. He's beautiful dark hair, perfect little fingers that curl and uncurl like he's grasping for something just out of reach, eyes that seem to look right through me into my soul. He looks like you, Jesselyn says softly, stroking the baby's cheek with one finger. Look at that strong jaw, those broad shoulders. He's going to be handsome like his daddy. I want to believe her, but honestly, he looks like every newborn I've ever seen, wrinkled and red, and absolutely perfect in his imperfection. What should we call him? I ask, my voice thick with emotion. You choose, she says, but she's not looking at me anymore. She's staring at the baby with an expression I can't read. You're his father. Father. The responsibility of that word settles over me like a blanket I've been waiting my whole life to wear. Matthew, I say, without hesitation. Matthew Bishop, after my brother, who died in Vietnam. Jesselyn nods, but something in her face has changed. She looks tired, yes, but also sad in a way that doesn't match the joy of this moment. Matthew Bishop. It's a good name for a strong boy. The nurse approaches with paperwork and final bills. I pull out the envelope I've been carrying all morning, cash for any additional charges, tips for the staff, whatever else might be needed to ensure my son gets the best possible start in life. I need to step out and make some calls. I tell Jesselyn, kissing her forehead. Let everyone back home know Matthew's arrived safely. Don't be long, she says. But she's already focused entirely on the baby, whispering words in Tagalog that I don't understand. I walk out to the corridor and pull out my phone to call Sarah. The reception is better near the elevators, so I head that direction, already planning what I'll say to my daughter. How do you tell your 38-year-old child that she has a new baby brother? How do you explain that at 66, you're starting completely over? I'm scrolling through my contacts when I hear voices from the room next door. Through the partially open door, I see a man about 30 years old sitting in the visitor's chair, holding a stuffed teddy bear that looks expensive, well chosen, like something a father would buy for his newborn son. He's Filipino, dressed in a clean button-down shirt and pressed slacks, and he's speaking rapid Tagalog to someone I can't see from my angle. Something about the scene feels familiar, but I can't place it. The man looks nervous, excited, the way expectant fathers look when they're pacing hospital corridors waiting for the most important news of their lives. But this is the maternity ward. Lots of men look nervous here. Lots of men pace and worry and clutch stuffed animals while they wait for babies to be born. Then he stands up, and I get a clear view of his face. It's Jay. My blood turns to ice water in my veins. Jay, the mysterious cousin who was too shy to meet me. Jay, who texted about lunch dates and couldn't wait to see someone later. Jay, who supposedly worked nearby but never materialized in 8 months of dating his cousin. He's holding that teddy bear like it means everything in the world to him. Like he picked it out carefully, like he's been planning this moment for months. And he's walking toward the door of Jesselyn's room with the confidence of someone who belongs there, someone who has every right to be there. I duck around the corner, my heart pounding so hard I can taste copper in my mouth. Through the glass partition, I watch Jay enter the delivery room. I watch him approach Jesselyn's bed. I watch her face light up when she sees him, not with polite recognition but with joy. Pure, unguarded, absolutely radiant joy. The kind of joy she's never shown me. Not once in 8 months. And then I watch her hand him my baby. My knees almost give out. I have to lean against the wall to stay upright, my vision blurring at the edges. Jay cradles little Matthew like he's done it 1,000 times before, like this moment is the culmination of months of planning and anticipation and love. They're talking in whispers, heads bent together over the baby, creating a family portrait I was never supposed to see. The teddy bear sits on the bedside table next to the flowers I bought this morning, looking like it belongs there more than anything I've ever given her. I can't breathe. I can't think. I can't process what I'm seeing, but I can't stop watching either. This is my son. My money paid for this room, this doctor, this birth. I counted out 60,000 pesos in cash this morning to ensure everything would be perfect. But watching Jesselyn with Jay and the baby, I'm clearly the outsider here. I'm watching a family that doesn't include me, celebrating a moment I'm not part of, sharing a joy I was never meant to witness. A nurse walks by and gives me a strange look. I realize I'm standing in the hallway like some kind of stalker, spying on what should be the happiest moment of my life. I force myself to walk back to the elevator bank, to find a bathroom where I can splash cold water on my face and try to make sense of what just happened. In the mirror, I look like a ghost, pale, shocked, aged 10 years in 10 minutes. The man staring back at me isn't a new father celebrating the birth of his son. He's a fool who just realized he's been living in someone else's dream. I stay in that bathroom for 20 minutes, trying to come up with innocent explanations. Maybe Jay really is a cousin, just more involved than I expected. Maybe Filipino families are closer than American families, more hands-on with new babies. Maybe I'm overreacting to a perfectly normal cultural difference that I don't understand. But deep down, in the place where truth lives even when we don't want to face it, I know exactly what I saw. I saw the real father meeting his son, and I saw the woman I thought loved me sharing the most important moment of her life with someone else entirely. I force myself to walk back toward Jesselyn's room, each step feeling like I'm walking through wet concrete. My legs are heavy, my chest tight, but I need to see this through. I need to understand what's happening to the life I thought I was building. The door is closed now. Through the small window, I can see Jay sitting in the chair I'd occupied just an hour ago, holding the baby while Jesselyn sleeps. But she's not really sleeping, her eyes are open, and she's watching him hold Matthew with an expression of such tenderness, such complete contentment, that my stomach clenches like someone's punching me from the inside. This isn't how a cousin holds a baby. This is how a father holds his son. This is how a woman watches the man she loves meet their child for the first time. I can't go in there. Not yet. I need time to think, to figure out what to say, how to confront this without falling apart completely. So I walk to the waiting area and collapse into one of those uncomfortable plastic chairs that every hospital seems to buy in bulk. My phone buzzes with a text from Sarah. "Dad, you said you'd call with an update. Is everything okay? I've been worried about you all day." I stare at the message for a full minute before typing back. "Baby's here. Healthy boy. We'll call later." How do you tell your daughter that her new baby brother might not be her brother at all? How do you explain that the man she's been worried about is apparently the world's biggest fool? 20 minutes pass before Jay emerges from the room, no longer carrying the baby but still clutching that damned teddy bear like it's a lifeline. He walks right past me, close enough that I could reach out and grab his arm, close enough that I can smell his cologne and see the happiness radiating from his face like heat from a fire. He doesn't even glance in my direction. Why would he? I'm nobody to him. Just some old foreigner who pays the bills while he lives his real life with his real family. I wait another 10 minutes, gathering courage I'm not sure I have, then approach the room again. Jesselyn is awake now, alone, holding Matthew against her chest. She looks up when I enter, and for just a second, something flickers across her face. Guilt? Fear? Relief that I didn't walk in while Jay was there? "Where did you go?" she asks, adjusting the baby's blanket with hands that seem to be shaking slightly. "I was wondering where you were." "I was making phone calls in the corridor," I say, sitting in the chair that still holds the warmth from Jay's body. "My daughter wants to know about her new brother." "Brother." I watch Jesselyn's face when I say it, looking for any reaction. She nods and smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes the way it did when she was looking at Jay. "What did you tell her?" "That Matthew arrived safely. That he's healthy and beautiful." I pause, studying her face. I told her his father is very happy. Now she does react. Just a small flinch, like I've touched a bruise she was trying to hide. "That's nice. I'm sure she's excited to have a baby brother. Jessalyn. I leaned forward, taking her free hand in mine. Who was just here? What do you mean? I saw someone leaving your room. A man. Filipino, about 30, carrying a teddy bear. She doesn't answer immediately. Instead, she focuses on the baby, stroking his cheek, adjusting his blanket, doing anything to avoid meeting my eyes. When she finally speaks, her voice is barely above a whisper. That was Jay. Your cousin. Yes. The one who's too shy to meet me. Harlan, please don't do this now. I just gave birth. I'm exhausted. Can't we just be happy about the baby? But I can't let it go. 8 months of doubts, 8 months of red flags, 8 months of feeling like I'm living in someone else's story, all come crashing down on me at once. He was holding Matthew like he's done it before, like he has every right to be here. He's family. In the Philippines, family is very close. You don't understand our culture. Then help me understand. Why haven't I met this family member who's so close to you? Why hasn't he ever come to dinner or stopped by the apartment? I told you, he's shy around foreigners. He didn't look shy. He looked like he belonged here more than I do. She finally meets my eyes, and what I see there isn't the love and gratitude I've grown accustomed to. It's something colder, more calculating, like she's deciding how much truth she can afford to tell me. Harlan, you're being paranoid. The birth was stressful. You're emotional. You're seeing things that aren't there. Am I? Because from where I stood, it looked like I was watching the real father meet his son. The words hang in the air between us like smoke from a fire neither of us wants to acknowledge. Jessalyn doesn't deny it. She doesn't get angry, doesn't protest my accusation, doesn't tell me I'm crazy or cruel or wrong. She just stares at me with those dark eyes I fell in love with 8 months ago, and says nothing. And in that silence I have my answer. How long? I ask, my voice steadier than I expected. How long have you been with him? Harlan. Please. How long, Jessalyn? She shifts the baby to her other arm, still not answering. A nurse walks by in the corridor, her shoes squeaking against the polished floor. Somewhere down the hall, another woman is in labor, creating her own family story. I wonder if hers will turn out better than mine. 3 years, she finally whispers. 3 years. While I was mourning Margaret, while I was eating frozen dinners and wondering if my life was over, Jessalyn was building a relationship with Jay. A real relationship. The kind that results in babies and teddy bears and looks of absolute joy when he walks into a room. Are you married? No. But we lived together, have lived together, before you came. And when I came, I moved in with you. But I never stopped seeing him. The simple honesty of it is almost refreshing after months of lies wrapped in reasonable explanations. No elaborate story about cultural differences or family obligations. Just the truth, delivered quietly while she holds the baby that I paid for but didn't father. Why? The question comes out broken, hollow. Why did you do this to me? For the first time since I entered the room, she looks genuinely sad. Not guilty, not ashamed, but sad in the way someone looks when they have to explain something they wish wasn't true. Because you were lonely, and I needed money, and it seemed like we could help each other. Help each other. You got companionship. I got financial support. It was supposed to be simple. And the baby? The baby was an accident. With Jay. But when I realized I was pregnant, she trails off, shifting Matthew again. You realized I'd pay for everything. You wanted to be needed. You wanted to take care of someone. I let you take care of us. Us. Even now, even in this moment of brutal honesty, she's clear about who her real family is, and it's not me. I stand up slowly, my joints creaking like an old man's should. Because that's what I am. An old man who fell for a young woman's game and convinced himself it was love. I need some air, I say, walking toward the door. Harlan, wait. I turn back. She's sitting up straighter now, holding Matthew protectively against her chest. Thank you, she says softly. For everything. You're a good man. You deserve someone who can love you the way you love them. It's the kindest thing she's said to me in months. And somehow, it hurts more than anything else. I walk out of that room and down the corridor, past the nurse's station, and the other new families celebrating their own beginnings. In the elevator, I catch my reflection in the polished steel doors. I look exactly like what I am, a 66-year-old fool who confused loneliness for love and financial dependence for affection. But I'm not angry. I thought I would be, but I'm not. I'm just empty. like someone opened a valve and let all the air out of my chest. Outside the hospital, Manila hums with its usual chaos of traffic and street vendors and people living their real lives. I sit on a bench in the small park across from the entrance and watch the world continue spinning like nothing has changed. My phone rings. It's Sarah calling back, probably worried about my cryptic text message. I let it go to voicemail. How do you tell your daughter that the baby brother you just announced doesn't actually exist? How do you explain that her father is an idiot who got played by a woman young enough to be his daughter? I'll figure that out tomorrow. Tonight, I just need to sit here and let the truth settle over me like dust after an explosion. I thought I was saving Jessalyn. Turns out she was just surviving me, and now we both have to figure out what comes next. I walked the streets of Quezon City for hours, my feet carrying me through neighborhoods I've never seen before, past faces that don't recognize me and never will. The sun sets behind the smog, painting the sky the color of old bruises, and still I keep walking. I don't want to go back to our apartment, my apartment, I suppose, since I'm the one paying rent. I don't want to face the crib I assembled with such care, the baby clothes I bought with such hope, the life I thought we were building together. My phone keeps buzzing with messages I don't read. Sarah, probably worried about her cryptic text. Maybe Jessalyn, though I doubt it. She got what she needed from me. The birth is paid for, the medical bills are covered, and Jay is probably moving back into the life I temporarily interrupted. I find myself in a small park where old men play chess under flickering streetlights and young couples share secrets on concrete benches. I sit down and finally allow myself to think about all the moments I should have seen the truth, all the red flags I wrapped in pink ribbons and told myself were cultural differences. The phone calls she took in the bathroom. How many of those were to Jay, planning their real life while I slept in the bed we shared? The errands that took hours longer than they should have. Was she visiting him? Spending time with the man she actually loved while I waited at home like a faithful dog? The money I sent for prenatal appointments. Did any of it actually go to doctors? Or was I funding their relationship, paying for their dates, subsidizing their happiness while thinking I was investing in our future? I remember the day she told me she was pregnant. How she cried with what I thought was fear but now realize was probably guilt. She knew the baby wasn't mine, but she also knew I'd take care of them both. She knew I was lonely enough, desperate enough, love-starved enough to believe whatever story she told me. You're such a blessing, Harlan. How many times did she say that? How many times did I preen under those words, feeling important and necessary and wanted? I was a blessing, all right. A financial blessing. A solution to her problems that walked into her life at exactly the right moment. My phone rings. Not Sarah this time, but a number I don't recognize. I almost don't answer, but curiosity wins out. Hello? Is this Harlan? A woman's voice, older, speaking English with a Filipino accent. Yes, who is this? My name is Carmen. I'm Jessalyn's sister. The sister I've never met, despite living in the same city for 8 months. The sister whose name Maria is definitely not Carmen, which means this is probably another sister, another family member who exists in the real version of Jessalyn's life. Oh, I don't know what else to say. I wanted to call you because Jay told me what happened at the hospital. I thought you should know. We didn't know about you until today. What do you mean? We knew Jessalyn was seeing a foreigner, but she told us it was just for money. She said you knew it wasn't serious, that you were just helping each other out. The casual cruelty of it hits me like a physical blow. Not only was I being used, but her entire family knew I was being used. They probably laughed about it over dinner, the lonely old American who was so desperate for love he'd believe anything. She told us, you knew about Jay, Carmen continues. She said you were okay with it, that you just wanted to help with the baby because you had money and they didn't. No, I say quietly. I didn't know about Jay. I thought the baby was mine. There's a long silence on the other end of the line. When Carmen speaks again, her voice is softer, sadder. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We would have said something if we'd known you were being lied to. Jessalyn can be complicated when she's desperate. Complicated? That's one way to put it. How long have they been together? Since college. They've been on and off for years, but they've been serious for the last 3 years. Living together, planning to get married when they save enough money. 3 years. The entire time I thought I was building something new and beautiful with Jessalyn, I was actually just the third wheel in someone else's relationship. The ATM with feelings. The baby is definitely Jay's. They were trying to get pregnant for months before you came along. When Jessalyn found out she was pregnant, she was so happy. But then she realized how expensive everything would be, and she panicked. So she found me. So she found you. And you seemed so nice, so generous, so willing to help. She convinced herself she was doing the right thing, that you wanted to feel needed, and she was giving you that. What she was giving me was a lie. Yes, she was. And I'm sorry. I thank Carmen and hang up, though I'm not sure why I'm thanking her. For the truth, I suppose. For treating me like a human being instead of a convenient fiction. I think about the last 8 months, trying to separate what was real from what was performance. Were any of her smiles genuine? Did she ever actually enjoy my company? Or was I just a job she had to show up for every day? When she laughed at my stories about the hardware store, was she really amused or just earning her keep? The worst part is, I still don't know. Maybe some of it was real. Maybe she did like me, in her way. Maybe she convinced herself she was doing something noble, helping a lonely old man feel important while solving her own problems. But it doesn't matter now. Real or performed, it's over. I walk back toward our apartment as the city settles into its nighttime rhythm. Street vendors pack up their stalls, office workers head home to their families, and life continues like nothing has changed. But everything has changed for me. The life I thought I was living, the future I thought I was building, the love I thought I'd found, all of it was fiction. The apartment feels different when I let myself in. Smaller, emptier, like a stage set after the play has ended. The baby clothes are still folded in neat piles on the dresser. The crib I assembled with such care sits in the corner, waiting for a child who will never sleep in it. I sit on the couch where Jessalyn told me she was pregnant, where I held her while she cried tears that I thought were fear but now understand were guilt. I check my bank account on my phone, adding up the numbers I've been avoiding for months. $8,000. $8,000 over 7 months for a relationship that was never real and a baby that was never mine. But the money hurts less than the shame. Less than the realization that I was so desperate to be needed, so hungry for purpose, that I ignored every warning sign my brain tried to show me. I chose to believe because believing felt better than facing the truth that I was alone. Margaret used to say I was too trusting, too willing to see the best in people even when they showed me their worst. Your heart is bigger than your brain sometimes, Harlan. She'd tease when I'd loan money to customers who never paid it back, or help neighbors who never returned the favor. That's going to get you in trouble someday. She was right. It took 8 months and $8,000 and the birth of another man's baby, but she was finally right. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. This is Jay. Carmen gave me your number. I'm sorry you got hurt. Jessalyn never meant for it to go this far. I stare at the message for a long time before typing back. Take care of them both. They're your family now. He responds immediately. Thank you. You're a good man. You deserve better. Even Jessalyn's boyfriend has more honesty and compassion than she did. The irony would be funny if it wasn't so pathetic. I delete the conversation and scroll through my contacts until I find Sarah's number. She's called 3 times since my cryptic text about the baby. I owe her an explanation, even if I'm not sure how to give one. Dad? Finally. I've been worried sick. How are you? How's the baby? When can I meet my new brother? Sarah. My voice sounds tired even to me. There's something I need to tell you. What's wrong? Is the baby okay? The baby's fine. He's just not. He's not your brother. What do you mean? So, I tell her. Everything. The dating app, the long-distance relationship, the trip to the Philippines, the pregnancy that made me feel like I had a purpose again. The money, the lies, the hospital room where I watched another man hold the child I thought was mine. Sarah listens without interrupting, which is more grace than I deserve. When I finish, there's a long silence. Dad, I know what you're going to say. Do you? That I'm an idiot. That I should have known better. That a woman that young and beautiful would never want someone like me unless she was getting something out of it. That's not what I was going to say. No, I was going to say that I'm sorry. I'm sorry you were lonely enough to put yourself in that situation. I'm sorry we didn't stay in touch better after Mom died. I'm sorry you felt like you had to look for family halfway around the world because the family you already had wasn't doing enough to show you that you mattered. I start crying then, sitting alone in that apartment 8,000 miles from home, holding a phone and talking to my daughter who sounds more grown up than I've ever heard her. It's not your fault, Sarah. You have your own life, your own family. I should have figured out how to be okay on my own. Nobody should have to be okay on their own, Dad. That's what family is for. I thought I was building a new family. I thought I was getting a second chance. Maybe you were, just not the way you expected. What do you mean? When are you coming home? The question catches me off guard. Home. I've been thinking of the Philippines as home for months, but home is really that empty house in Boise where Margaret's coffee cup still sits in the sink and her favorite pillow still smells like her perfume. I don't know. I need to figure some things out first. Dad? Yeah? When you're ready to come home, we'll be here. All of us. We love you, and we should have done a better job showing you that. After I hang up, I sit in the quiet apartment and think about second chances. Maybe Sarah's right. Maybe I was getting one, just not the kind I thought I wanted. Maybe my second chance isn't about finding new love or building a new family. Maybe it's about reconnecting with the family I already have, the children who grew up and moved away but never stopped caring about their father. I spend the next hour packing. Not everything I'll have the moving company deal with, the furniture and the baby things I'll never need. Just the important stuff. My clothes, my books, the pictures of Margaret I brought from home. The life I can actually build instead of the fantasy I've been living. Tomorrow, I'll go to the embassy and start the process of getting home. Tonight, I'll sit in this apartment one last time and say goodbye to the man who was so desperate to be needed that he forgot to ask if he was wanted. I'm at Ninoy Aquino International Airport, sitting in the departure lounge with a boarding pass for a flight that will take me back to Boise via Los Angeles and Denver. My luggage is checked, my seat is assigned, and I have 6 hours to kill before they start boarding. 6 hours to think about the 8 months that brought me here and what I'm going to do with whatever's left of my life. The night before I left the apartment, I wrote Jessalyn a message. Not an angry rant or a demand for explanations or an attempt to make her feel guilty. Just the truth, simple and clean. I hope the baby grows up with more honesty than the people raising him. I hope he never has to wonder if the people who claim to love him are telling him the truth. You got what you needed from me, and I got what I thought I needed from you. I guess that makes us even. I typed it, read it 3 times, and hit send. Then I blocked her number, deleted our photos, and tried to erase 8 months of my life that turned out to be someone else's story. She never replied. I didn't expect her to. The airport is full of families saying goodbye and hello, lovers reuniting after time apart, business travelers who look as tired as I feel. I watch a young couple holding hands across from me, the man stroking the woman's hair while she sleeps against his shoulder. They look real in a way Jessalyn and I never did, comfortable with each other, like they belong together instead of playing roles they've memorized. I wonder if I'll ever feel that real with another person again. I wonder if I want to. My phone buzzes with a text from Sarah. Flight delayed in Denver. Should still be there to pick you up on time. Can't wait to see you, Dad. She insisted on meeting me at the airport, even though it meant driving 3 hours from Seattle with 2 teenagers in the back seat. You shouldn't be alone right now, she said when I tried to talk her out of it. You've been alone enough. She's right. I've been alone for 8 months in a city of 12 million people, surrounded by noise and chaos and the constant presence of someone who was never really there. Being alone in Boise might actually feel like solitude instead of isolation. I think about the house waiting for me, empty and quiet and full of memories I've been running from. Margaret's garden, probably overgrown by now, her books still on the nightstand, the silence that used to feel like death but might now feel like peace. Maybe I'll learn to garden. Margaret always said I had good hands for growing things, but I was too busy with the hardware store to pay attention. Maybe I'll finally read the novels she recommended, the ones I always said I'd get to someday when I had time. Maybe I'll call my son David, who lives in Portland and sends Christmas cards but not much else. Maybe I'll drive down and meet his kids, my grandchildren, who know me as the sad old man who sends birthday checks but never visits. Maybe I'll learn to be a grandfather instead of trying to be a father again. The boarding announcement for an earlier flight echoes through the terminal, all in Tagalog except for the flight number and destination. I've learned enough of the language to catch a few words here and there, but not enough to feel like I belong. I never really belonged here. I was just a tourist playing house with someone who needed my money more than my company. A little boy runs past my seat, chasing a balloon that's escaped from his grip. His father catches him with one arm and the balloon with the other, swinging the child up onto his shoulders while he secures the string. The boy laughs like it's the funniest thing that's ever happened to him. I think about Matthew, who's probably sleeping in Jay's arms right now, while Jesselyn recovers from a birth I paid for but wasn't meant to witness. Will Jay be a good father? Will he teach the boy to be honest, to keep his promises, to treat people with respect instead of seeing them as opportunities? I hope so. I hope Matthew grows up better than his parents. I hope he never learns that his birth was funded by a stranger who thought love could be bought with kindness and generosity and willful blindness. But that's not my responsibility anymore. I'm not his father, not his provider, not his anything. I'm just the old man who got confused about his place in someone else's story. Now boarding Flight 127 to Los Angeles, with continuing service to Denver and Boise. The gate agent's voice cuts through my thoughts, professional and cheerful, and completely unaware that she's announcing the end of the worst mistake I've ever made. I gather my carry-on bag and walk toward the gate, past the young couple who are still holding hands, past the father with the boy on his shoulders, past all the real families living their real lives. At the gate, I hand my boarding pass to a flight attendant who smiles like she means it. "Welcome aboard, sir. Happy to have you with us today." "Thank you. I'm happy to be going home." And I realize as I say it that it's true. I am happy to be going home, not because the Philippines was awful, it wasn't. The country is beautiful. The people are warm. The experience taught me things about myself I needed to learn. But it was never home. It was just a place I went to hide from the life I thought was over. Maybe that life isn't over. Maybe it's just different now. Maybe being a widower doesn't mean being alone forever. Maybe being needed isn't the same thing as being loved. Maybe I can find purpose that doesn't depend on other people's problems or other people's lies. The plane taxis toward the runway, and I watch Manila disappear outside my window. 8 months ago, I arrived here thinking I was saving someone. Now I'm leaving with the understanding that the person I really needed to save was myself. The flight attendant offers me a drink once we're airborne. "Whiskey, please, on the rocks." She brings it in a plastic cup that makes it taste like airplane, but I don't care. I'm toasting the end of something that should never have begun, and the beginning of something I can't see yet but hope will be better. 2 second chances, I whisper to the window, to the clouds, to whatever God might be listening to lonely old men who finally learn the difference between love and need. The plane climbs higher, carrying me away from the life I thought I wanted and toward the life I actually have. It's going to be quiet, probably lonely sometimes, definitely different from the fairy tale I tried to create, but it's going to be real. And after 8 months of living a lie, real sounds pretty good. I'm sitting in my old recliner in Boise, the one Margaret bought me for my 60th birthday because she said I needed somewhere comfortable to read the newspaper and complain about the world. Outside my living room window, snow is falling on the garden she planted 20 years ago, covering the perennials that somehow survived my 8-month absence. 3 weeks since I came home. 3 weeks of silence that feels different from the silence that drove me to the Philippines. This isn't the absence of noise, it's the presence of peace. Or maybe that's just what I'm telling myself because I'm too tired to run away again. Sarah kept her promise. She picked me up at the airport with her kids in the back seat, Emma, 16 and texting, and Jake, 14 and pretending to be too cool to care about his grandfather's international drama. But when I got in the car, Jake turned to me and said, "Grandpa, I'm sorry that lady was mean to you." 16 words that meant more than 8 months of "I love you" from someone who was lying. Sarah stayed for a week, cleaning out closets I'd been avoiding, cooking meals that actually tasted like food instead of the frozen dinners I'd been living on. She didn't ask many questions about Jesselyn, didn't make me relive the details, didn't tell me I should have known better. She just made sure I had groceries and clean laundry and someone to talk to when the quiet got too loud. "You don't have to take care of me," I told her the night before she left. "I'm not taking care of you," she said, folding towels at my kitchen table. "I'm spending time with my dad. There's a difference." She was right. There is a difference. I spent 8 months trying to buy my way into someone's life because I thought that's what love looked like. But love isn't transactional. It doesn't require payment or proof or performance. It just is, steady and quiet and real, like Sarah driving 6 hours round trip to make sure her father knows he matters. David called yesterday from Portland. We haven't talked in months, but somehow he'd heard about my adventure, probably from Sarah, and wanted to check in. "Dad," he said, and I could hear his 2-year-old daughter chattering in the background. "I know we don't talk much, but if you ever want to visit, you're always welcome. Lily keeps asking about her grandpa in Idaho. She doesn't even know me. then maybe it's time she did. Maybe it's time we all got to know each other better. So I'm driving to Portland next weekend, not to escape or to find something missing, but just to spend time with my son and meet my granddaughter and maybe start building the family connections I thought I had to replace instead of repair. The house doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels quiet, which is different. Empty is the absence of something that should be there. Quiet is the presence of peace. Margaret's things are still here, her books, her coffee cup, her reading glasses, but they don't hurt to look at anymore. They're just reminders of love that was real, even though it ended. I've started reading her book recommendations. The novels she always said I'd love if I gave them a chance. She was right about most of them. I'm working my way through her garden journals too, learning about the flowers she planted and when to expect them to bloom. Spring is still months away, but I'm already planning what to plant, what to nurture, what to grow. My neighbor Mrs. Chen knocked on my door last week with a casserole and an invitation to play chess. "I know you just got back from your trip," she said. "Thought you might like some company while you settle in." Turns out she's been worried about me since Margaret died but didn't want to intrude. We've played chess 3 times now, and she beats me every game. It's the most fun I've had in years. The dating app is deleted from my phone. Maybe someday I'll want companionship again, but if I do, I'll look for it closer to home, with people who know my real name and my real story and don't need my money to make their lives work. I'll look for someone who wants me, not someone who needs me. Because that's what I learned in the Philippines, in that hospital corridor where I watched another man hold the baby I thought was mine. The difference between being wanted and being needed. Jessalyn needed me, needed my money, my willingness to be used, my desperation to matter in someone's life. But she never wanted me. She never chose me for who I was, only for what I could provide. Real love is wanting someone, not needing them. Real love is choosing to be with someone even when you could survive perfectly well without them. Real love doesn't require payment or proof or performance. It just is. I thought I was being generous in the Philippines, thought I was being loving and selfless and good, but I wasn't. I was being needy. I was trying to buy something that can't be bought, trying to earn something that can only be given freely. The cost wasn't the $8,000, though that stung. The cost was 8 months of my life spent living someone else's lie because I was too desperate to face my own truth. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we all need to learn the hard way sometimes. Maybe 66 isn't too late to figure out the difference between love and loneliness, between being wanted and being used, between building a life and buying one. My phone buzzes with a text from Sarah. "Dad, the kids want to know if you're coming for Thanksgiving. I told them you probably have plans, but they insisted I ask." I look around my quiet house, at Margaret's books and the snow falling on her garden and the chess set Mrs. Chen left on my coffee table. I think about Portland and my granddaughter's chatter and David's invitation to get to know each other better. Tell them yes. I text back. Tell them Grandpa is coming home for Thanksgiving. Home. Not to a place where I'm needed for my money or useful for my services, but to a place where I'm wanted for who I am. Where I belong not because I pay the bills, but because I'm family. It took a trip halfway around the world and the worst mistake of my life to remember that I already had a home. I already had people who cared about me. I just forgot to look for them in the right places. If you're listening to this story, if you're watching this video, maybe you're like me. Maybe you're searching for something that feels like love, something that makes you feel important and necessary and alive. Let me tell you what I learned the hard way. Love isn't proven by how much you give. Sometimes it's proven by what you walk away from. Real love doesn't cost $8,000 and 8 months of your life. Real love is free, quiet, steady, and true. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it's been waiting for you at home all along.